Good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me? Yes? Brilliant. Well, before we start the QEF Queen's Tea, we're just going to go through a few housekeeping, if that's okay. Firstly, all guests are muted. This is so that you can enjoy your best live event. We'd also advise as well that you put us on speaker view. This is on the top right-hand corner of your screen. So if you click that button and when you see me in large, that will mean you've got the best view to enjoy this live event. Phones and iPads will automatically have this view, so please do not worry. If your internet drops out, all you have to do is rejoin us again on the link that we sent you or using the ID and password that you have. And don't worry, we are recording the event and we will be sending it to all participants should you miss anything. Finally, if you have any questions during the event, you can either use the button down the bottom, which says chat, and type us your message and we'll be able to respond. Alternatively, you can email events@qef.org.uk, or you can give us a call on 01372 841 171. We also have as well, just a bit of pre-information before we start, a live auction that's taking place until Sunday. There are prizes to suit all tastes and budgets, and the majority have been donated directly to QEF, so the charity will receive every penny bidded. There are a number of celebrities who are also donating their time free of charge for a 15-minute private Zoom call with the winning bidder, and that was Alison Steadman, Arlene Phillips, and we also have Marion Bailey from The Crown. You can find these at live event, www.givergy.uk/QEF. You can also as well, on that site, buy QEF an 85th birthday present if you would like, but you can also find this in your Queen's Tea pack, your details there. So please take a look. So let the event begin. Welcome everyone to QEF's Queen Tea in celebration of QEF's 85th year and the birthday of our late patron, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. We have our very own birthday cake to celebrate, and I do hope that you have your cream teas. QEF would like to say a very special thank you today to Banham's Foundation for their generous and continued support of the Queen Elizabeth Foundation. And would also like to thank our special guests today, including the trumpeters of the Band of the Welsh Guards, Prue Leaf CBE, Nicholas Witchell, and Jennifer and Jude. Our Queen's Tea truly is an international affair, with guests joining us from Switzerland, hello, Portugal, we've got North Yorkshire, Devon, Somerset, and the Isle of Wight. And of course, we have Surrey. So welcome, everyone. We also want to say a special hello to those who are watching us from our QEF services, and a number of ex-ILS residents who are joining us at Hemmet House today, who are having a QEF Queen's Tea party. Welcome, everybody. So, let me officially start our Queen's Tea and welcome QEF's volunteer and chair of the Spring Ladies' Lunch Committee, Sally Ann Marks, and Prue Leaf CBE. I've been signed in.
Right, hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Queen's Tea in aid of Queen Elizabeth's Foundation for Disabled People and our Survive and Thrive appeal. Today marks a very special day in that we're celebrating 85 years of the foundation and, of course, the birthday of our late patron, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. I hope everyone there is enjoying their tea parties, whether in your gardens or indoors, and I'm delighted on behalf of you all to welcome our very special guest today, Prue Leith, CBE. Hello, Prue.
Oh, hello. Isn't it a beautiful day?
It's a beautiful day. And of course, as everyone knows, you're one of our country's foremost authorities on everything culinary. You're a renowned restaurateur, caterer, food writer, novelist, broadcaster, and of course, television presenter. And you've also been a successful entrepreneur and businesswoman and won the much wanted Veuve Clicquot Businesswoman of the Year award. You write for, or have written for, the Daily Mail, the Sunday Express and the Guardian, and I know you continue to write for newspapers and magazines. Not always on food, so maybe we'll find out a bit about that later. So welcome again, Prue.
Thank you.
And just to say, this is such an unusual situation, isn't it? I mean, here we are in lockdown using Zoom as if we really know what we're all doing. This pandemic and lockdown is such a challenge for so many of us, not least, of course, charities like QEF. But what's your experience of the lockdown been?
Well, I feel slightly guilty about my experience because it has been absolute bliss. I had forgotten about how wonderful it is to be at home and how much I like my husband and how great it is to go for walks with the dog and have a lovely garden. And I have had the most wonderful time. And I've, I think the one thing that I would have gone slightly mad about it with is if I hadn't had lots of people to cook for, because cooking for 2 people twice a day is not my idea of, I'm a caterer first and foremost, long before a restaurateur. And so the best thing about lockdown is, and this is, I don't want to sound like virtue signaling, but the thing that has kept me sane is that every week on Fridays, I do supper for the care home up the road, not the patients or not the residents, but the care staff. And there are 30 of them. And what is so wonderful about them is they have huge appetites and they like old-fashioned food. So I'm cooking things like shepherd's pie and spag bol and chili con carne and all those sort of family favorites, which of course I never really get a chance to do in quantity. And normally if I've got lots of grandchildren around, I do cook for lots of people. So it's been wonderful. And because I'm one of the sort of protected, lucky over 70s who everybody has to do things for, I don't even have to go shopping. Either I get delivery or people bring it to me. And a wonderful volunteer comes and takes all the food up on Fridays for the, it's just such fun to do.
Well, that's great. Good to hear. And we've been very lucky with the weather, of course, haven't we? So that's made such a difference. But Prue, tell me how your love of cooking began. What was your inspiration for it?
Well, it didn't happen really. I mean, I was always greedy. I mean, I was a very greedy child. And so my whole family were pretty keen on food, so we did eat well. But I didn't cook. I was brought up in South Africa, and we were very privileged family. And we had a cook, and he was a lovely chap called Charlie. And Charlie could have taught me to cook at his apron strings, but it wasn't until I got to Paris, to the Sorbonne, where I went to university, that I realized, you can't live in Paris for 2 years and not realize that food matters. The French think about nothing else, practically. So I learned to cook, and I got the bug in Paris.
Well, I'm not surprised. What a wonderful place to be. I know that in 1969, you opened your restaurant. It became a Michelin star. I mean, what an accolade for that. And you ran that for about 25 years. What a time to be running a restaurant in hip London. And I think the Beatles ate in your restaurant, is that right?
It is.
Have you got any stories you can share?
No, well, we did. I was very lucky because I was the first woman, I think, to own a sort of serious gastronomic restaurant. I mean, there were some really wonderful bistros and cafes and pubs run and owned by women. But so I got a lot of publicity, and we became hugely fashionable. Mm-hmm. So we did get everybody. And of course, most of them, I didn't know who they were because I'd been so busy working all the time that I wasn't really, I mean, I was a little bit into the pop scene. So I knew if Lulu or the Beatles or the Stones appeared, I could tell who they were. In fact, when the Beatles came, Ringo, they all came together with their manager, and Ringo, they ordered a fry-up, and which wasn't on the menu, needless to say. But of course, we did a fry-up, and Ringo said, "And don't put any chopped parsley on it." I thought that's very funny, because he said, if people put chopped parsley, put herbs, green stuff on everything. Don't want that.
Oh, well, there you are. He was your client, he was paying, so there you go.
Well, anyway, I would never put chopped parsley on a fry-up, would you?
No, absolutely not. Scrambled egg, maybe, but I know that, I think I alluded to it earlier, that you're a multifaceted person. Lots of interests and an awful lot of things. And you were the chair of the Royal Society of Arts some time ago, I think. And the driving force behind the 4th Plinth programme in Trafalgar Square. And this is probably the most famous. QEF's favourite statue, of course, is Alison Lapper's Pregnant by Mark Quinn back in 2005. And this was the huge 13-ton marble figure of the artist Alison Lapper, who people may remember was born with, and I hope I pronounce this right, phocomelia, I think, and has no arms and very much shortened legs. And that statue became such a symbol for disabled people.
And she was
hats off to you.
And pregnant and naked. I mean, that was so wonderful about that statue.
And it became such an important thing in the Paralympics, didn't it?
Yeah,
the London 2012. I think in the opening ceremony. So, I mean, what an accolade again for you. Full of them. Well done.
But, you know, the reason that I was involved in this thing at all is just because I'm a fairly bossy woman and very interfering. And so I'd said, if I see something wrong, that I think is wrong, I want to go and fix it.
And you were just saying about how extraordinary that the plinth should have been empty for so long until you came along. So hats off to you.
Well, it was really empty originally because William IV was supposed to go on it, and he was going to pay for his own sculpture. But he died, poor guy, and then no one could ever agree. And I struggled at the beginning too. I couldn't get anybody to agree on what should go there. And then one of my little committee, James Lingwood, said, let's have a contemporary, temporary sculpture. So it'll be exhibition space. Let's use it as exhibition space, because nobody will object to a sculpture if they know that it's going to come down in 9 months or a year. So that's what we did. And the first sculpture we had was a tiny little figure of Christ, which was sort of human size, which was hugely popular, funnily enough. Even with it was very moving little sculpture. And then we had a lot of very, very famous sculptures. Actually, when we did it, every sculptor in the world realized this is the best exhibition space in the world. This is a big advert for your sculpture. I mean, I'm really proud of it because I think, I've done a lot of things in my life, but that one, with any luck, will last. And it changes every year, so it stays up to date.
Well, it does. I think it's a terrific idea. And so alongside being a food columnist, obviously you write cookbooks. I tried your roasted tomato soup the other day, terrific. But then you made the leap into writing novels. So what made you do that? That seems to me an interesting leap.
had for 25 years, I just done nothing but think about food. I had all these businesses, the school and the catering company and the restaurant, and I was writing for all those newspaper columns, and I was writing cookbooks. So I was thinking about nothing but food. And after 25 years, by which time I was employing something like 500 people, so it was a hugely busy business. And I kept saying to myself, one day I'll write that novel that's buzzing around in my head. And I suddenly realized when I was heading for 50, and I thought, if I don't stop doing some of the stuff, in fact, stop doing all of the stuff, I'll never write a novel. And so what I did was I sold the businesses, and I stopped writing cookbook. I remember swearing when I was asked by Good Housekeeping or something to write a food column. I said, I'm never going to write another recipe in my life because I want to write novels. And so I then wrote 8 novels, and I pretty well stayed at home. But then, of course, being me, I got involved with other companies and started doing non-executive director work and charity stuff and lots of things that interested me, but not business. I mean, not my own business.
Yeah.
And
well, that's a good segue perhaps into the Great British Bake Off.
Yeah.
Not to mention it, it's such a fantastic show and everybody loves it. And I love the Celebrity Bake Offs. I think they're such fun as well.
Aren't they good?
They really, I've laughed and laughed over those. So can you give us an insight of what it's like inside that tent? And of course you work with the delicious Paul Hollywood. So a little bit of an insight there.
I know, every woman's favourite middle-aged crumpet.
What can we say? Yeah.
No, it's those blue eyes, isn't it? Well, he's adorable. In fact, I mean, he's really responsible for, I think, for the fact that I got the job at all, because I didn't know him, but he knew me and he knew my restaurant, and he knew I knew about food, and he was very keen that whoever replaced Mary Berry should really know their onions, because of course Mary does. And so when I went for this audition, I had actually thought that I was going to they'd said, come and meet Paul Hollywood, we need to see how the chemistry works. So I thought I was going to have a cup of coffee with him. And I'd never done an audition in my life. So I turned up, and there was all these cameras and all these big wigs from Channel 4 and all these people from Love Productions, all in suits, terrifying. And a makeup lady and clothes I had to wear, a stylist, and Paul, and 2 home economists pretending to be competitors. And we had to judge, first of all, soda bread and then brownies. And so on this soda bread, Paul knows his onions about bread. My goodness, he knows everything about bread. So he went in first, and he was telling us what was all about the soda bread. And I actually agreed with him. I mean, so I didn't say anything. I just said, Paul's right. it's perfect. And so when we broke, he said, Prue, if you want this good job, you've got to move your ass. You've got to get in there. Even if you agree with me, at least say it over again, because they need, he basically said, pull yourself together and try a bit harder. Don't just stand there saying, yeah, Paul's right. So then when the brownies came up, I got stuck in. Had a go at the brownies.
Well, I mean, obviously you passed it with more than flying colours, because it's so lovely to see you and standing up for us slightly older women. I think we're all thrilled to see this. Well, thank you very much for that.
I am completely obsessed with the fact that so many older women, and by older women I mean all sorts of women over the age of 55, seem to think that they can't wear bright colours. I'm delighted to see you in lovely purpley mauve jacket.
So another little blip in technology, and you've had to zoom off somewhere else, I think. We've changed where you are.
No, I'd try my computer rather than my phone in the hopes that it would work better.
Well, thank you for allowing us into your sitting room, as it were. during lockdown, we've all done a lot more. My challenge was to make a bagel. I haven't managed it yet, so I'm still trying. But what's your great tip in the kitchen? Are you able to share one really good tip with us all?
I suppose one overall tip I would say is that your friends are not there to judge you as in Bake Off or as in for a Michelin star. They're there because they want to see you. And, you know, the most important thing is that you use good ingredients and do what you're told. And you will make a perfect. If you use if you can't cook at all, a recipe that you really love eating, and just follow the rules, and you will produce something delicious. And that's all that matters. Don't get stressed about it. It's supposed to be fun.
It is, and well done. Thank you. That's perfect. Music to my ears, Prue. That one, and I suspect to everyone else as well. So I'd like to round this off really by thank you for helping to celebrate QEF's 85th birthday, this Queen's Tea baking event, and all the money raised by all these people taking part today will help to ensure that QEF still gives such expert help, and of course helping us to get through this financial difficulty caused by the pandemic. So I remember you being a wonderful speaker at the autumn lunch about 5 years ago at Epsom Racecourse, and we've not been able to hold our lunches this year, so we really are trying really hard to raise money because it's such a success, those lunches. So we hope to resume them next year, of course, but it's been a great sadness for many of us who really loves the day.
I do really congratulate you, and I do hope that everybody who's having their virtual tea parties will, it's wonderful that they're supporting you, because everybody is besieged on all sides now by masses of charities who are in deep, deep trouble. And you do need to know which of the charities will use the money really wisely and who are doing a fantastically good job. And you one of those.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your interest and your continued support of QEF. It really is very much appreciated, Prue. And just a final word to all our wonderful supporters out there, still hopefully enjoying a piece of cake or a scone or two, Prue's recipe, I'm sure. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you do to support QEF. I hope you continue to have a wonderful afternoon and stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Leanne.
Well, thank you, Sally Ann and Prue. I hope you all enjoyed Prue's Q&A. You'll find her Bing Cherry and almond cake recipe in your Queen's Tea pack. So that is direct from Prue, so please give it a go. And now I have the pleasure of introducing to you QEF's Vice President, Nicholas Witchell. Now, Nicholas has been a supporter of QEF for over 30 years and is the Chief BBC Royal Correspondent for over 20 years. Now, Nicholas has kindly joined us today, live over Zoom, to recount some fond memories of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. And also, we have a few questions that have been sent in by you in the audience. So, welcome, Nicholas.
Ailey, thank you so much. Now, first of all, can you hear me all right? That's, I think, the first technical question. You can. There's a head being nodded there. Yes, and good afternoon to one and all. And what a very special way to come together to have a very special tea and, of course, to mark this 120th anniversary of the birth of our late patron, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. Who could possibly have imagined just a few short months ago that we would all be able to link up like this? We've all had to be resourceful and resilient in these recent months and find new ways of doing things. We are all Zooming. Even the Queen. You may have seen some of the television reports of the link-ups that she's been involved in. And I think it's a wonderful platform, actually, Zoom, for her rather dry sense of humour. So well done to everybody for linking up. I think there are not far short of 100 people on this call. And so perhaps I might start by offering compliments, Hayley, to you and your team for putting all of this together. I know a huge amount of work has been involved, and dare I say it with fingers crossed, it's all going terribly well. So compliments to you, and of course, sincere thanks to everyone who is supporting QEF by taking part, whether they're in the United Kingdom, or I think you said there are people in Switzerland and Portugal. I do hope wherever you are, the cream teas and the walnut cakes are going down well. And also thank you for joining us and for supporting QEF this afternoon. Zoom is it's a nosy Parker's paradise, Zoom, isn't it? Because we can peer into people's front rooms, their kitchens, and in this case, into their gardens. So what a wonderful opportunity this is. But yes, my name is Nicholas Witchell, and as Hayley was saying, I've had the pleasure of having an association with QEF for, I think, about 35 years now, since the mid-1980s, first as a governor and a member of various committees. I was closely involved in the Foundation's Diamond Jubilee in 1995, in which Alison Lapper, who Prue Leith was referring to there, was very much involved. And more recently as some honorary vice something or other, which sounds really rather doubtful, but there we are. The other thing that I do is, yes, I work at the BBC, and I've been doing that for nearly 45 years now, which leads one really to the inescapable conclusion that I'm clearly past it and really ought to be retiring as quickly as possible. For the past 20 odd years, I've been one of the BBC's royal correspondents, reporting on the activities of the royal family. I sometimes think by royal disappointment, as has quite often been the case, particularly one afternoon or one morning as it was, on an icy mountainside in Closters with the Prince of Wales some years ago. Yes, I am that awful man. But we haven't come here to talk about that. We are here this afternoon to remember our late patron, who of course was instrumental in setting up the foundation, first as Duchess of York in the early 1930s, lending her support to what was then quite a radical concept of a training college for disabled people, and then opening the training college in June 1935. Now, if you get hold of this rather splendid book, The Platinum Years, which you can get hold of from QEF, there's a wonderful photograph here. Let me see if I can show this to you, of her opening the training college on the 27th of June 1935. There she is. And up to that point, nobody had really thought of training disabled people and equipping them with the skills that would enable them to find employment. So it really was pioneering work back then in the mid-1930s. And of course, her interest continued throughout her life, as when she became Queen Consort, when her husband was unexpectedly thrust onto the throne after the abdication crisis of 1936. And the training college subsequently took her name. In 1941, after a wartime visit, she requested that henceforth it should be known as Queen Elizabeth's Training College, and then subsequently in further years it became Queen Elizabeth's Foundation for Disabled People. And her interest was constant. In 1948, she visited the foundation, and another photograph here, she was presented with a corgi puppy. Now, this corgi puppy here was called, would you believe, was called Philip, which it strikes me must have caused all sorts of confusion within Buckingham Palace if the Duke of Edinburgh just happened to be around when she was calling out the puppy's name. I'll leave you to conjure up images of how that might have occurred. But her interest was undiminished after the death of her husband in 1952 and her transition to the role in which most of us knew her as Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. And she maintained her many charitable patronages, and I think it's right to say, derived great satisfaction from her involvement with organizations like QEF, as well, of course, as giving great pleasure during her regular visits. I think meeting people was second nature. It came so naturally to her. She had an instinctive grace and an ability to connect with people. And she was perhaps rather more at ease on the public stage than her elder daughter was, certainly in the early years of her reign, who was rather reserved in public. They both, of course, share a very deep and abiding sense of duty. That, more than anything, has been the hallmark of the Queen's reign. But I don't think that anyone would ever have described the Queen Mother as shy or reserved. She had an absolutely natural and sincere warmth and affinity with people, stemming, I think, from a genuine enjoyment in meeting people and talking to them and finding out about their lives. She did a lot of that during the Second World War, of course, touring London and elsewhere with her husband, and she continued that as Queen Mother. Her last visit to QEF was in 1992. There we are. And this photograph here shows her with the then chairman of the QEF, Lord Hamilton, James Hamilton, in 1992. And I recall having had the pleasure of being there at Leatherhead Court on that occasion. And she was, of course, as warm and interested as ever. A reminder of the great value that a royal patron who is genuinely engaged, the value that such a person can bring to a charity. So I'm sure that we would all agree that QEF was very fortunate to have had such a long association with her and to carry her name forward now with pride as the charity moves through these challenging times, still as it was right back at the start in 1935, at the pioneering forefront of the care of people with disabilities. So, ma'am, if you're listening, we miss you, and we raise not a glass of gin and jubonnet, which may well have been her first choice, but a cup or a mug of tea in your fond memory on this, the 120th anniversary of your birthday, and as your foundation celebrates 85 years of service to disabled people. Hayley, back to you, and possibly some penetrating questions, which I'm sure I won't be able to answer, but I'll do my best.
Thank you, Nicholas. And you are so right. We are so, so proud of our patron, our late patron. So thank you very much. I do have some questions that have been emailed in, if that's okay. The first one is from Francis Clark, which says, do you have any inkling on how the royal family have reacted to the Meghan and Harry's book, Finding Freedom?
Oh, I thought that might come up. I mean, let me be perfectly honest. I have no inkling as to how the royal family feel about it. I can guess, and I will in a moment, or I will make some assumptions. I mean, I have some sense of how officials feel about it. I think, you know, without being too indiscreet, I think there is great disappointment. I think it would be fair to say that there is sadness and disappointment that that they have left in the way that they have. There is, I think, a degree of concern at the way the whole thing is moving. I mean, after all, one of the principal objectives of Harry and Meghan is to protect their own privacy, and yet they have clearly authorized, or she has authorized friends of hers to, in effect, invade her own or their own privacy. So I think that there is, I think there is quite deep disappointment, over the way in which it was done. In January, the announcement that they were leaving, and I think that there is great sympathy and fellow feeling for Harry in particular, because he's a valued and cherished member of the royal family, for whom there were such great hopes, and it's not to say that those hopes can't still be realized, but I think that at the moment things are clearly just in a state of flux and giving rise to some concern. I think that's as best as I can do without being too indiscreet.
I think that's perfect. Thank you, Nicholas. And it actually leads me on to a similar question that come through from Hazel Townsend, which said how you think the Queen Mother would have felt about the situation with Harry leaving the royal family.
I think she would have felt all of that, but even more strongly, because her whole approach to royal duty, we must remember, was shaped by the abdication, was shaped by a king who relinquished his duty, ran away or walked away from his duty, well, as it was, of course, to marry an American. Now, there are some parallels here, but I think that the Queen Mother would have been greatly disappointed at what has happened, given the particular events that she lived through and her approach to royal duty, which was that it must come first before everything else.
Thank you. And then my last question, which comes from Linda Buckle, is, do you think the Queen will ever abdicate the throne?
No, is the simple and emphatic answer to that. I think she, again, it goes back to the abdication that we were talking about just a moment ago. I think that it is absolutely something that is taboo within the royal family, or within her generation of the royal family. And I think she takes terribly seriously the vow that she took at her coronation. She is an anointed monarch who's made a vow to God that she will serve until her death. And I think that that is the traditional approach of a British monarch, and I think that that is her attitude to this. That's not to say, of course, that she will not continue to step back. She's now in her 95th year. She'll be 95 years old next year. And as we've seen already, the Prince of Wales is taking on more of the duties of head of state and supporting her more and more. But I'm quite convinced that she will remain monarch herself until the moment of her death.
Well, thank you ever so much, Nicholas. It has been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thank you ever so much. And everyone at the Queen Elizabeth Foundation thinks that you're a wonderful vice president. So thank you ever so much for everything that you do for us. So
my pleasure, my pleasure. And yes, let the tea party continue.
Exactly, yes, let's. We're certainly going to cut our slice of cake now, because we're going to introduce to speak with us now our QEF's CEO, Karen Deacon. And Karen is here to tell us a little bit more about the impact the coronavirus has had on QEF. So over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Hayley.
Oh. Karen, you're... Oh, yes.
Okay. I'm on mute again. Technology is wonderful. I think actually it's the most common words used over the last 3 to 4 months is you're on mute. I think it's words that haven't been in our vocabulary before, certainly are now. So thank you everybody for coming today. We really appreciate it. And I want to just extend my thanks as well to the Banham Foundation for their sponsorship. That was really appreciated and makes a big difference to us. Nicholas, that was really, really insightful. I really enjoyed that. In fact, got so lost in it thinking, oh no, I'm on next. So I was really enjoying that. So thank you for that. And yes, I'm sure we'll all be trying Prue's recipes as well. I'm trying to now give a slightly upbeat message because life has been very challenging for us. The 85th anniversary of QEF should have been the most exciting time. We launched the Edward Guinness Appeal in November last year to the end of opening our new clinical and rehabilitation centre. We were so excited about that happening. We were literally 2 weeks away from moving our first clients in, when we were very aware of the changes that were happening in the world and what was coming our way. I haven't been shy in saying we did close our borders, if you like, early, because we made sure that the very fragile nature of the clients we look after was protected right from the word go. So we have remained in a very safe environment, but it has been a very lonely environment. And the biggest impact for us, without a doubt, has been the impact on our fundraising and our other income streams, which I'll talk about in just a little while. So we were looking forward to celebrating the Queen Mother's birthday today and having a wonderful 85th year and celebrating all that's great and good and our new build with the launch of the appeal, as I've said. But life changed, and life changed for many even more seriously. And I think it was right what Prue said earlier, was that a lot of charities have faced very complicated and very challenging environments. I've heard of many of my colleagues who aren't going to be able to continue. I wanted just to say what we do and the difference we make. I'm sure you'll hear this a lot, but I think we do change lives. And I am going to introduce you to somebody whose life we were hoping to have changed this summer and haven't been able to. The COVID impact to us is very real. We're currently taking people who have been ventilated for a very long time, and that's between 10 and 15 weeks, and they're coming to us for rehabilitation. Unfortunately, very little was known about COVID when it happened, and a lot of the people who have been on long-term ventilations appear to have suffered quite significant brain injury, including strokes. These are young, old. This doesn't seem to represent a risk factor of elderly. This is everybody has been affected. And we are taking those clients out of hospital now into our new rehabilitation centre and treating them with intensive physiotherapy, occupational therapy, but most importantly, also the psychology. The psychology of this disease is phenomenal, and I can't understate that. And you'd only need to meet some of these clients to understand that. Unfortunately, we also had to close a number of our services. We closed all 19 of our shops. We closed our mobility service because we were unable to do driving assessments, particularly for those with fragile conditions. We were also unable to continue our MERU service, which is our medical engineering unit that builds our wonderful Bugsy. Having spent so much time really making the benefit of the Bugsy to individuals, and you're going to hear that in a second, it's been absolutely heartbreaking for us to not be able to produce any over the summer. We're slowly opening, we're slowly getting back to normal, whatever normal is. This certainly isn't normal, but we're certainly getting back to normal. But we currently have lost nearly £1 million in fundraising this year. We've done an awful lot to try and self-help ourselves, and we have come to you, obviously hoping you would help us too. But that self-help we've done has reduced that gap, and we still need £500,000 before the year end to really achieve all that we had planned this year. Our COVID clients are relying on us. They're relying on us for a future. Our stroke patients are relying on us getting them out of hospital before they contract something else. Our young people, initially dropped off, of course, with their brain injuries when we went into lockdown, are now representing. I think lockdown has caused a response of people actually going out. And I think one of the young men said to me, we're going out and we're going out big. We have had to do lots of things. And one of them has been to launch the Survive and Thrive appeal. And we've mentioned that through Sally Ann earlier. I'd like to now introduce you, and I'm taking a deep breath because it is quite an emotive little film. And I'd like you to really suspend a few minutes looking at the impact of not having the Queen Elizabeth MERU service available to one family. And that family is Jennifer, and the impact it's had on Jude. Jude is a young man who Jennifer will tell you all about. And we are now actively trying to help him as soon as we possibly can. But we have been absolutely heartbroken. We haven't been able to help him so far. And now it's our time to repay that back. She's helping us. We will try and help her as much as we can. So now I'm going to introduce you to Jude and Jennifer. Well, Jennifer's going to do the talking, and Jennifer's got her new baby too.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm mum to Jude, who's 2 years and 4 months, and Hazel, who's about 10 weeks now. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about our family and about how MERU and QS have helped us, but also how the lockdown and COVID have really made things difficult for us to get more support. Okay, so Jude was born at full term, and everything was fine. We didn't have any reason to expect that anything would go wrong. Unfortunately, his heart rate was dropping towards the end of when he was being born, and when he was eventually delivered, he wasn't breathing, and he had no pulse, and so he was rushed to be resuscitated. He was taken away from us, and he was put into intensive care, and we didn't really know what had happened. We just knew that his heart he wasn't breathing, and yeah, it was terrifying because we thought that everything was going to be fine. We didn't really have any reason to expect otherwise. And then he was transferred to another hospital, and he had to have treatment for 3 days, where the body and brain is cooled to prevent further damage to the brain. because basically he had lack of oxygen when he was being born, which causes really bad brain damage. There is a treatment that can limit that, which is the cooling. And then you have to kind of wait to see what happens at the end of those 3 days. So we spent 3 days sitting with him and talking to him, but he was unconscious. And he wasn't really showing any brain activity, and he had organ failure. And so they were really worried about him. And then after the 3 days, they did an MRI scan, and they told us that his brain was so badly damaged that he wouldn't be able to breathe on his own, and that the best thing for him would be to let him go and take him off his breathing support. And so on the 5th day, when he was 5 days old, they removed his breathing support, and we were there with him, and we said goodbye, and we were allowed to, you know, take lots of photos and bath him and do all the things that we should have been able to do with him, which was amazing. And so then we let him go, but he didn't stop breathing. He sounded like he would stop breathing, and then he just carried on. And everyone kept saying to us, "Oh, he'll go soon. You know, he's really badly brain damaged. There's no way he'll continue to breathe." And he just did. And we were kind of in shock and not knowing what to think. And the same over the first few weeks, we didn't know whether we were suddenly going to lose him again, or whether he was going to be okay. It was kind of a really big spectrum of outcomes that we were trying to deal with. And I guess since then, it's just been a bit of a roller coaster of coming to terms with his diagnoses, which he has a lot of. And those kept coming in the first few months as we understood a bit more about what his brain damage meant for him. And then, yeah, we're still here 2 years and 4 months later. So, and he's just a little fighter, and he continues to be a little fighter. So we're very lucky, really. So one of Jude's therapists first tried Jude out with a switch about a year ago, and it was just simple things to say hello and goodbye, and he really took to it. You could see, you know, it was really great seeing him get that satisfaction of being able to make something happen by himself. And then we found out you could get switch adapted toys, and specifically from Meru. So we looked into that a bit more, and a couple of people bought him a bubble machine, and we've got like a light toy as well that kind of lights up and spins. And he just loves them because he loves being able to make something happen and use toys that a typical child would use. And that's been kind of it's kickstarted his communication in a way as well, of him knowing that he can do stuff. And it spurs them on when they feel that. And then we found out about the Bugsy, and the reason I found out about that was from other parents online who had used them for their child, and I just thought, wouldn't that be incredible if he could make himself move, and what that would do for his brain and just his happiness overall and everything. So we looked into that a bit more, and we got some support from our therapist to apply for that. And also the good thing about the Bugsy is that it's switch adapted, and then you can adapt it to their needs as well. So you can try different switches, and you can build up to, I think eventually they can use a joystick to turn themselves around if they've got the ability to do that. So, you know, really it could be amazing for him, and we were really hoping that we could get it in time for summer so that he could go outside and use it. Because he struggles to go out when it's cold because of he can't control his body temperature very well. So yeah, we were really excited about this summer and then being able to do that for him, if we could get the Bugsy. But yeah, unfortunately, we've not been able to, and because of the lockdown and everything that's happened. With the lockdown, we weren't able to get the Bugsy in time for summer. And as I understand it, they weren't even able to build any Bugsies during that time, so everything stopped. And now the lockdown's lifting, which is amazing. Although obviously we're still really cautious about that and a bit nervous. But it also doesn't mean necessarily that the Bugsy will still get the Bugsy anytime soon, because there was a long waiting list anyway. And now, as I understand it, QEF and MERU are really struggling with funding, partly because they've not been able to fundraise through lockdown, and also because of the general situation at the moment. The waiting list is built up even further. So I think anything that anyone can do to help that could have huge benefits for children that are waiting for Bugsies and for other equipment or other services from QEF and MERU. So it would be really good if anyone could donate, perhaps, for example, to pay for new Bugsies to be built or anything else like that. So, hello from me and Jude. We just want to say thanks very much for all the support that MERU and QEF have given us so far. And we'd also like to say please donate and please continue to let them help disabled people to live more fulfilled lives. And have a great day.
Hi, Karen, we can hear you.
Sorry, Kate, sorry, my screen went blank. Again, technology is always wonderful until it doesn't work. Thank you, Jennifer and Jude. Moving, so it probably gave me a few minutes composure anyway, so probably planned. COVID has affected so many people, not least, 40,000 people that have died, but actually now we need to concentrate on those that have survived it and those that have suffered because of it. I'm really hoping that today you've heard a story of how Queen Elizabeth Foundation has really challenged the boundaries of how we can help ourselves first and to keep as much services as we can and to make the difference for the people that most need it. If anybody wants to know what COVID can do to somebody, you only need to listen to Kate Garraway's blogs, because they show a very, very impactful story about what's happening to herself and Derek. If you can help us, if you can help us help Jude, if you can help us help anyone else that we look after to thrive and survive, then we would be most grateful of that. We have done a lot to reduce that gap, but we still need £500,000 to get us through to the end of the year to really make the impact for the people that need us so much. Those numbers are just increasing, they're not decreasing, and we want to be there to help them. We know you're being asked by so many at the moment for so much, and we really are hoping that we've shown today the difference that we can make. We really want you to enjoy your tea party, and we are going to end on something extremely uplifting. But if you have the opportunity before that to have a look in your packs, you'll see there is the bits for how you can donate. So giverg.uk/QEF if you'd just like to donate. There's things that you can buy for all salaries and wage ranges through that. There's also, you can bid on auction items for the private Zoom call, as Hayley said earlier, with Alison Stedman, Arlene Phillips and Marion Bailey. The donation card is also in your pack, and we really would appreciate anything that you can help us with. I'd like to conclude by thanking everybody. I think our speakers have been fantastic. Hayley and her team, amazing. Thank you very much again. And thank you for helping us at Queen Elizabeth Foundation. Help the Judes of this world. Help the people that really, really need us and have never needed us more. Help us make a difference to so many so we can survive and others can thrive. I'm going to pass you over to a very important sign-off.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susie G, and I do hope you're enjoying your Queen's tea in aid of the QEF. This is rather strange I'm singing to you virtually today, but whilst the pandemic keeps us apart, I've chosen to perform a song that gives hope and vision for a bright and new, better tomorrow. Dame Vera Lynn and the Queen Mother were close friends, so I thought it only apt to perform